10 days later, you get a single box of one trunks.
Yeah.
And he's like, seriously, guys? Wait till my next order, put it in with that box, then send it to me. You're sending stuff in airplanes, one pair of board shorts. You got an order for me 10 days later, save it for that one.
Yeah.
And I think I picked up a lot from that without realizing it. I think that really stuck with me, and way before I started Noah, I was reading about consumption and, how we consume, how we view products and what they mean to us, that kind of thing. And
it's a fascinating topic, actually. The meaning we put into all of these things, and the want of newness all the time, and how our economy kind of rewards us. I mean, we're rewarded for wasting a lot of times, right? Like you're not rewarded when you try to conserve or hold on to something for a longer period. So if we can go deep in there if you want.
Well, the thing is it impacted my decision making with my own business, because I said, one of the things we set out to do was create products that really were not of the moment. They can last. Yeah. And they can be around a long time. What's really required across the board, like all of society, is we actually need to change what we value. Yeah. Okay. So right now we do value newness and fresh things and more expensive and everything else. And we all get a sense of satisfaction when we're recognized for like having the latest thing or the nicest car, biggest house and all that. We need to restructure our values where those things aren't as important anymore. Yeah. Where, the newest, greatest thing from the coolest brand, maybe it's fine, but maybe it's not as important anymore. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like we value people with taste and style rather than people who just bought the latest crap. Yeah. Right. Like let's put creativity and individualism at the forefront rather than, who can afford this jacket with those shoes and those glasses and wear it all together at the right restaurant. You know what I mean? It's nuts. It's completely nuts. So we built that mentality into the business, which is kind of awkward because we do produce goods and, we do want to sell things. We just say there's a limit. Yeah. Right. There's no limits on companies. The company's goals are to be as big as they can possibly be without any responsibility to what gets them there. Yeah. Right.
It feels like, well, one, like I can see the influence of Patagonia and Yvon Chouinard too, which Johnny had given me a little bit of preface on too, which,
I mean, they're the gods. I mean, they've pioneered it all for all of us. And without them, we steal from them all the time, like,
well, it's amazing, because what they do is they build stuff to last, and the style is pretty timeless. It's not too fashion forward. It's not too retro. It's just right in the middle. The only thing I wonder is if there's a different way to do clothing sales, if there's a different way to do it where maybe we buy a subscription of clothing or something, and that when we wear it for the year and then we return it, and when we return it, we get something else instead, and maybe we pay a little extra fee on top or whatever. Right. Like, I feel like there's got to be another model out there where it's just buy it, done, and then wear it till, I rinse it and shrink it and realize like it doesn't fit me anymore and I gotta, or whatever,
Well, there's a lot of things attached to what you just said.
Yeah.
I mean, one, there is a way. Patagonia does it. We do it. Other companies are starting to do it. You can bring your stuff back. We'll give you a bit of money for it. Nice. And we'll take it and we'll find a new purpose for it.
That's awesome.
And there's multiple things. It can be resold. It can be cut up and used as, insulation. There's a lot of different things we can do with old clothes. So we do that, and we give people cash now for their old Noah stuff.
That's awesome. So listeners, if you buy Noah clothing, they'll take it back. They'll hook you up.
But here's what's even more fascinating. We have customers who are like, well, why would I bring it back to you when I can resell it over here for, a bigger chunk of money, or even more than what I paid for it in some cases.
Like the Real and all those types of sites that are recycling clothing and
Real
vintage.
I mean, used clothing and keeping used clothing in circulation and relevant is incredible. People who buy vintage are doing more for the environment than the rest of us walking around with our metal straws and everything else. Like it's so there's a lot that can be done to make the world a better place. But I do believe it starts with the larger organizations.
Yeah.
Big companies use the bulk of global resources, both natural resources and human resources.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes they use them in a way that is not very nice. So it's up to the consumer to take back the power and demand better products, better behavior, you name it. And the fundamental root problem of all of this, and you can guess where this is going, is greed.
Yeah.
Companies are huge. It's not enough. They still have to find ways to make more money. And the only way to do that, literally the only way to make more money, is to make it so someone somewhere else is suffering in some way, in one way or another. There's no way around it.
It's the system that we've built, and it's like, I'm super hesitant to ever put malicious intent on people in the companies, because it's like, they're just cogs. We're all like these kind of cogs. And it's like, well, you have these, you want to build the company because you want to be able to provide more services, more goods for people. Well, you need investors. Okay, you get investors, but those investors have their own wants and needs that may not totally align with yours. Then they'll be like, well, now we've gotten this big. Now we got to go public or sell or something. And then going public, well, then all of a sudden your fiduciary obligations, it's all about growth. And if you subscribe to the Milton Friedman's, kind of philosophy, where just the companies will just do good based on the market, which I don't believe. It's all this bullshit. It's like Milton Friedman said, like, oh, well, the investors should be the ones getting the money, not the employees, not the community. So you have all these companies now doing these crazy buybacks, where the money could be going to the employees or into making the products better for the environment or whatever it is. And so we've created this horrible system, particularly the stock market and, that type of fundraising, which has done amazing things for society, but it's also really trapped us in a really bad cycle.
It is very complex, right? Because we live in a capitalist society that has probably done incredible things for both you and I, and a lot of your listeners.
And a lot of people have been lifted out of poverty, for it. It's definitely sorry.
But here's what's fascinating about that. While some people are being lifted out of poverty here, others are being treated like, in really inhumane ways, right?
Yeah.
The American public, my opinion is that the American public has a responsibility to the rest of the world, if we want to be the nation we say we are, to accept responsibility for our consumer choices. Because when the American public decided, okay, all of the big companies are going to start producing goods elsewhere,
mm-hmm.
and it's going to be great for me because now I'm buying stuff way cheaper. No one stopped to ask, what does that mean for someone else somewhere else?
Yeah.
Someone's doing it for nothing. Someone's being paid nothing to make those goods. Someone's working 6 days a week, 14-hour days, away from their family, living in dorms somewhere else on the other side of the world, being really mistreated, so you can have your product a little bit cheaper.
Yeah.
You can have your ounce of convenience. And that was a major, major mistake on our part, not just for what it did to humanity, but also what it did to our own economy, because we're not a producing economy anymore.
Yeah. And you see what happens in COVID, right? We're out of masks. We're not producing masks. We had to get it from overseas. And now there's like this big rush to try to produce certain core necessary products here again.
And it's all linked, right? It's not just that our economy took a hit or your neighbor was. So like, okay, you're getting this thing cheaper, but your neighbor's out of a job because he was working in the factory that made that thing before.
Exactly.
So eventually you're going to pick up the tab down the line. You're going to pay something. Right?
Right.
It's like cheaper food makes you unhealthy. We all pay the price in higher healthcare costs.
You would think we would learn from how many movies and stories and myths about deals with the devil and how they never end up being what, you think it is.
Right.
You're like, yeah, I can make you the best surfer in the world, no problem. But there's a catch,
It's called, and I'm not going to remember the definition exactly, but it's called, there's a name for it. It's called the tragedy of the commons.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something to do with the idea that like human beings rarely have the ability to do what's right for the larger group.
Yes.
And in choosing themselves over the group, they actually hurt themselves in the end.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel that way so much about things. Like, I'm always like, well, we should be doing what's best for everyone, shouldn't we? And like, no, I want to do this. I should be able to do this. Right. I don't want to wear a mask. I shouldn't have to wear a mask, and you're like, yeah, but if you wear the mask and everyone wears the mask, we all wear the mask a lot less overall,
right.
But if you keep wearing that mask, keep not wearing that mask, we all have to wear it a lot longer. There's like all that sort of stuff that people don't seem to understand. Like, we're all connected.
Right.
And
you're complaining about the economy, yet you're the one who's making the economy suffer longer.
Right? Exactly.
We're not a very intelligent society in America. Like, we are really like, we're kind of like a teenager who thinks it knows everything, but actually knows nothing. We are not sophisticated as a society at all.
Well, we're really bad at thinking long term, and then we've put in these processes and systems in our economy that encourage short-term thinking and not long-term. Right. And so, and I would say, like, there was a time in the US economy where there was companies thinking a bit more long-term. I mean, they had to, because they had pensions and other things they had to pay for. So they had to think about the longevity. Once you took that sort of stuff away too, and you just were like, well, you got a 401k, that responsibility's off of our chest. You do that. We don't have to think about you. And then the buybacks and all that other stuff. I get on a rant.
You mentioned something earlier where, like, you don't want to accuse people of having malicious intent.
Yeah.
I like to think that. I think that's a really nice way to think about things. However, these are grown people. Yeah. Right? So, like, maybe it's not malicious intent, but when your choices as a CEO or a leader of an organization or company are hurting others, and you kind of just ignore it, you might not have set out to hurt people, but you're still hurting people, and you are, and you still do nothing about it. You still look at and say, like, well, this many people are going to go without water in this part of the world, or this many people are going to be drowning in our plastic waste because that's where we ship it. But we'll make a couple extra bucks. I don't give them as much room,
I'm talking. I guess I was talking like everyone, like companies as a whole, the people, everyone that make up the parts of it, the people leading those companies. Well, I mean, yeah, a few of those people are probably sociopaths and psychopaths too. That, seriously, they don't feel guilt. A lot. I think a lot of them, and I think, to be honest, like, to be in those positions, you almost have to have no emotion, because I think at that scale, you're burning people no matter what to get there. Right. So,
I never really thought about that. You might be onto something. Maybe they should study all the kind of
they do. There are studies. There are studies. There are psychopaths and sociopaths who run big corporations. You don't have to murder people to be a psychopath,
You just made my day so much worse, dude. I was like on a good path. And like, I hadn't even thought of that before. And now I'm like, oh, wow. Now I realize the whole world is run by sociopaths and psychopaths.
Dude, the guy, the CEO of, what's the name? Blackstone, right?
Right.
Motherfucker made $500 million in 1 year. You tell me, is that moral? Is that ethical? Right. Like, there's no job in the world that is worth paying that. Like, come on, that's crazy.
It's complicated, and it isn't actually. And that's when we started the business, these are the things we said. We said, look, we can make $1 zillion making, stuff in China, or we can make more money if we make plastic accessories, or if we use polar fleece.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, go down the list of things, and we don't do it. Like, I can't make a Bic lighter.
Yeah.
Right? It's plastic.